Dr. Fino, I think we can start.
All right. And will you start the recording?
Yeah, it's already on YouTube and we're gonna start today.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, participants and panelists. For me, it's a great pleasure to open this online international research seminar on the topic ensuring success of regimes of territorial autonomy, promotion of foreign direct investment, organized by the Permanent Mission of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United Nations in New York, which I thank for this initiative. As you know, in 2007, Morocco presented to the UN Secretary General its initiative for negotiating an autonomy statute for the Sahara region in order to break the stalemate in negotiations on the regional dispute about Sahara. The UN Security Council, in successive 15 resolutions, welcomed the, quote, serious and credible Moroccan efforts to move the process forward towards resolution, end quote. It also encouraged, quote, the parties to demonstrate further political will towards a solution, including by expanding upon their discussion of each other's proposals and recommitting to UN efforts in a spirit of realism and compromise, end quote. It also encouraged, quote, neighboring countries to make contributions to the political process and stressing the importance of all concerned expanding on their positions in order to advance a solution, end quote. In this spirit, and with the aim of promoting discussion on aspects of the Moroccan initiative, Morocco initiated since 2009 a series of international academic comparative seminars in various places, Dakhla, Geneva, New York, or online, on a whole range of topics related to autonomy, such as self-determination, human rights, institutions, natural resources, negotiations, regionalization, development models, civil society, external relations, settlement of political disputes, legislative, judicial, and executive powers, etc. And the comparative studies included the cases of Aceh in Indonesia, which we'll discuss again today, Andalusia, Azores and Madeira, that will also be on the agenda today, Bangsamoro in the Philippines, the Caribbean island states, Catalonia, Greenland, Indian Northeast, Iraqi Kurdistan, Italian autonomous regions, Mexican states, New Caledonia, Newfoundland, Nicaragua's Atlantic coast, Northern Ireland, Nunavut, Puerto Rico, Quebec, Spanish provinces, South Tyrol, Vojvodina, Wallonia, Zanzibar, that will be also on the agenda today, etc. The proceedings of these seminars have been published by Morocco and are available on a dedicated website, www.academicautonomynetwork.com. And today's seminar will focus on how to attract foreign direct investment into autonomous regions to improve their economic development. It will be an opportunity to compare the regulations or practices in 5 autonomous regions: Portuguese island of Madeira, British Crown dependencies, Jersey, Guernsey, and the Isle of Man, the Indonesian island of Aceh, the Danish Faroe Islands, and the Tanzanian archipelago of Zanzibar. The systems put into place in these autonomous regions to attract investment, and more specifically foreign direct investment, will be compared to the provisions proposed by Morocco in its initiative for an autonomous Sahara region. Indeed, regarding promotion of foreign direct investment to support the development of the Sahara autonomous region, it is worth recalling that the initiative provides in its Article 13 that the autonomous region, quote, will have the financial resources required for its development in all areas, end quote. And in addition to its own resources, taxes, duties, and regional levies enacted by the region, it will also include proceeds from the exploitation of natural resources allocated to the region, the share of proceeds collected by the state from the exploitation of natural resources located in the region, and proceeds from the region's assets. It will also benefit from, quote, the necessary funds allocated by the state in keeping with the principle of national solidarity. Moreover, the central government is mobilizing all efforts to attract foreign direct investment into the autonomous region. And the new developments worth looking into are, in particular, the recognition by the United States of Morocco's sovereignty over the Sahara region in 2020, and its reaffirmation of, quote, its support for Morocco's serious, credible, and realistic autonomy proposal as the only basis for a just and lasting solution to the dispute over the Western Sahara territory, end quote. As a result, the United States decided to open a consulate in Dakhla, in Sahara, quote, to promote economic and business opportunities for the region, end quote. Although this plan has not still materialized, but the decision, of course, is maintained. In December 2020, the US International Development Financial Corporation announced a plan of investment of $5 billion in Morocco and across the region. Today, there are 15 consulates open in Dakhla by countries such as Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Congo, Djibouti, Dominica, also representing Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as Equatorial Guinea, Gambia, Guatemala, Guinea-Bissau, Haiti, Liberia, Senegal, Suriname, and Togo. And in addition, there are 12 countries that open consulates in Laayun, also in Sahara region, Bahrain, Burundi, Central African Republic, Comoros, Eswatini, Gabon, Ivory Coast, Jordan, Malawi, Sao Tome and Principe, United Arab Emirates, and Zambia. So it's a total of more than 30 countries from Africa, the Arab world, and Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is not only an expression of support to the recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over the Sahara region, but also a demonstration of interest in the current and potential economic development of this region through foreign investment. This approach has also been followed by larger countries such as France, whose Deputy Minister for Trade confirmed last April that Paris is willing, quote, to accompany Morocco in its development of the Sahara region, end quote. And the French Minister of the Economy added that France is has already decided to participate in funding a 3 gigawatt power cable linking Casablanca to Dakhla. Last year, a Chinese company announced that it was considering a $20 billion investment in Laayun over 7 years to build a factory for electric batteries that would cover 30% of the needs of the Chinese, European, and American markets in the electric battery industry, which means more than 6 million car batteries by 2030. Such a major project would create some 13,000 permanent jobs in the region. And the Chinese company explained that the Sahara region was meeting all the conditions for the success of its plans. The United Arab Emirates is also reported to be keen to invest in the 1,650 hectares Dakhla Atlantic Port mega project, which will employ more than 1,400 workers, with the first terminals due to be operational by 2029. Abu Dhabi's national energy company is also planning to invest via its Moroccan subsidiary $10 billion on the 6 gigawatt green hydrogen project in Dakhla. These are only few examples of foreign direct investment that were made attractive by specific incentives in the Sahara region. Tax incentives could include corporate income tax reductions, investment incentives, and support for export-oriented businesses, although these depend on factors such as the type of industry and investment size. In any case, it's now time to look at the experience of other autonomous regions that may be quite different from the situation in the Sahara region, but may also provide useful examples or models that could inspire the future authorities of the autonomous Sahara region. So we will look at a number of questions such as, does the statute of the autonomous region include provisions on mechanisms for the autonomous region and or for the central government to attract foreign direct investment into the autonomous region? If foreign direct investment is possible or encouraged by the central government into its autonomous region, what impact does such investment have on the region's economy? When public or private foreign investors wish to invest into the autonomous region, can they deal directly with the region, or do they have to get permission from the central government? Is there joint control on the return on investment and proceeds? Does the autonomous region retain all profits from foreign direct investment, or does it return a share through taxation or revenue sharing arrangements? Is promotion of foreign direct investment into the autonomous region part of a national legislation which guarantees for investors? And finally, can the autonomous region express to the central government its views on priority sectors where it needs foreign direct investment? So this concludes my introduction, and I'm pleased to hand the floor over to experts who will explain the origin, the history of their autonomous regions, and give some indications about how these regions have been attracting foreign direct investment. We will start with the island of Madeira in Portugal, presented by Dr. Rui Carita, Professor Emeritus of the University of Madeira. Now you'll realize actually that the profile of our expert is very diverse. We have some lawyers, we have some tax experts, we have some business people, but Dr. Carita has a very original experience because he was a professor of art and design, and has a very large experience in studying and working on archaeological work in many countries. And so, of course, he's now also an expert on the history of the autonomy of Madeira, and he has published important works, including some by the Ministry of Defense of Portugal. So without further ado, I give him the floor for about 30 minutes. Over to you, Professor Carita.
Good afternoon. I don't know if I can make the I don't know if this is okay. Good afternoon. I'm sorry by my English. I don't speak English. I try, but I presume that I am the most older here. In my age, we learn a little French, play piano, make watercolors, etc. But only in the 70s we beginning to speak in English. The island of Madeira was been known in the middle of 14th century, if not before, but only with the development of navigation techniques and geographic referencings from 1420, 1425, is possible to proceed to a occupation. The settlement of the archipelago is completely in a new context and is the first experience of occupying a land that have never been inhabited before. The model was export to the new lands of Portugal expansion, like Açores, Cabo Verde, Brazil. Madeira supported the consolidation of Portuguese sites in the north of Africa, the settlement in Brazil, and the explorations and conquests of the Orient. The parts of these consolidation sites in Morocco, in 1508, Madeira customs authorities are responsible for paying and supporting part of the materials for the construction of Safis Sea Castle. Now is rebuilding. I have a student, doctorate student from Morocco that are working here. And the construction of the new Cathedral of Santa Catarina that was until 1512, 1520 maybe. In 1941, with conquest of Agadir, where several soldiers from Azores and Madeira were taken prisoner and later rescued. Almost all the squares were abandoned, and the ancestral commercial contacts remained, especially in fishing stores of the former Spanish Sara, was built in Mauritania, with Madeira supports a chapel and a fortress, etc., that exist in the new occupation for the French and before from the Flanders. The conditions, the special conditions, the privileged localization of Madeira in the North Atlantic, like you can see, almost in the center of the arc that defined the coast of Portugal and the coast of Morocco Atlantic Territorial, plus the wind and current regime, forced the navigation in arc in this area of Atlantic, and particularly the great armadas that left Europe to the New World between the end and of 19th and 16th century and middle of 19 passed closer to the island. These conditions still in 19th century and 20th century, it, for example, was responsible in the First War for the attack from the German submarines to the Funchal because the center of communications of England are situated in Madeira. In the middle of 19th century, the island of Madeira is also a destination of excellence and international therapeutic tourism, leading to some Europe-leading aristocracy figures staying several months in Funchal, like CC of Austria and the Princess of Brazil, the House of Sweden, etc. By that, we construe in the Funchal railway to support the tourism, and in the 20 there are a complete revolution of the routes from the transports, the accessibilities, etc., that change everything by the new tourism time in Madeira. Like the airports, the most important Cristiano Ronaldo airport. The first forms of administration, because the settlement begins in the north of Africa, in Morocco, by the medieval ideas of religious crusade, etc., the administration was given to the military order, the Order of Crystal. It changed in the middle of 16th century with the intervention of Portugal in Morocco by King Sebastian in the Battle of Alcácer Quibir, 4 August 1578, the Battle of Three Kings. The 3 kings that participated in this battle died. And this battle was responsible for the unification of Morocco, because died the king of Marrakesh, died the king of Fez Rabat, and Ahmed the Golden make the unification of Morocco. By that reason, the Portugal and Castilla, without a king in Portugal, Philip II of Castilla becomes king of Portugal, and have a new organization with a military government, not religious government like at the moment, that comes to the fortress of San Lorenzo, and unificate the customs house from Funchal and Mexico, in rebuilding a new completely house in Funchal that you can see here. In the middle of 18th century, the changes in Europe and in Morocco make a new form of government too, because with the conquest of Mazagão, aujourd'hui El Jadida, and the change of the interest of Portugal to the Brazil, changed everything. And the first big alteration was injustice with the religious justice subordinated to the Crown of Portugal. the first steps of autonomy happens after the war revolution, Napoleon War, that makes a completely revolution in all the Europe. The crown of Portugal, for example, needs to go to Brazil and return in the 1824, and in 1836 have a new constitution, a liberal constitution that change everything in Portugal. We have an administrative code, a code that establishes the new Junta Geral. The Junta Geral was a special system of government, local government, and make the commercial and industrial associations. This is very important because this type of organization out of the government makes a leader of all the economy in the island. Of course, this organization have developed and have retrocessed, etc. Some of them only exist in 1842, but in 1878 was restricted. But it's very interesting because in the islands of Azores and Madeira, this type of government with Junta Geral still over 19th and 20th century, every time. In the beginning of 20th century, the necessity of the King of Portugal, the happen of Republican scripts, etc., needs to go to the island to a visit, Madeira and Azores, and implant a new autonomy of the Junta Geral, the local government. Of course, the Republic was the first step, but not the right step, of course. It's not possible in the beginning of the 20th century make a revolution, autonomous revolution like Azores and Madeira wants. And when the president of Republic goes to Brazil and pass a Madeira, was a big surprise when it was received in Junta Geral and with the people asking from the new roles of the autonomous regime. In this time, 1922, Madeira, Azores, and Canarias reivindic a new statute of autonomy by the commemorations of the discovery. The Madeira Island makes a big ceremonies, etc., and they publish the basis of autonomy that was reprinted now in Madeira 21. And this time represents an affirmation from authentic autonomy by the history, by the monuments, by the the symbols that make the autonomy, like the first history of Madeira, that was the Elucidario Madeirense. In 26, Portugal comes to dictator, of course. What's impossible situation in Europe that comes to the Second War from all dictators, and the autonomy stays with many revolts liderated by the commerciants, and makes an intervention of the central government in Madeira. But the Junta Geral still alive every time. The new constitution of the Republic Portuguese, 1933, don't speaks about autonomy, but they still. And after that, Madeira makes the statue of the first captain of Funchal, for example, in 34. That was a strong position of a new time from the autonomy. Becomes in this time the revolution of the tourism, looking the official tourism bureau near of the state of Zarco. It's the symbols of development of Madeira, visual, and rebuilding the General Council of Funchal with a new entrance that happens in 1952. 1974, 25 of April, happens a revolution in Portugal. It's not easy. I speak about it because now I was captain of army and are political deported in Madeira because I am captain of April. And the base was the colonial war that General Spínola in Guinea and Cape Verde tried to negotiate the end of the colonial war, and the government of Lisbon don't accept, of course. And by that, the captains of the army make a revolution, a democratic revolution. They have 5 generals with a new program. Is a left program, a program that seems a new democracy, international democracy. This is General Spínola and Costa Gomes. In Madeira, I receive the formal members of the government, the president of the republic, the president of government, etc., and goes to the Brazil. And the first step was to make a new constitution of Portugal. And in that constitution already is affiliated autonomy from Madeira and Açores. This is the Portuguese Constitution 76. And by that, in Madeira, they can implant it, they can make is self-government bodies of autonomous region. This is the open of the Legislative Assembly of Madeira, 19 July 76. And by that Legislative Assembly, they publish a Statute of Autonomy. This is the discussion very strong in the left and the right, etc. Was not easy, of course, this process things. This is the first government, the first regional government of Madeira, 76, that is a prolongament, is a successor from the Junta Geral that 2 years after changed completely with a new government, with other constitution and other ideas about the autonomy, etc. This is the visit of President of Republic, 81, and the first big appointment by this government was the education. The education, the secondary schools, and the university was the most important revolution, in my idea, of course, in Madeira. And the new vision of the sea utilization, like you say now, the blue economy, etc., with the Selvagens Island, that is more near from Canarias than Madeira, but that transform the sea around Madeira in a new potential economic time. The economic force appoints by the Constitution in Canissal a center of business. That was the center of the development of Madeira. Was made by the economists, American economists and the Madeiran economists, and was liderated by Alan Greenspan, that goes 2 times to Madeira about it. The idea was the transfer to the other side of the island all the industrial institutions and make an industrial free zone. Of course, the industrial free zone have many problems with the common market. The European common market is every time in discussion in the left and the right, but still alive and growing. You can see the development, the continuous development of the free zone of Madeira. The industrial free zone is articulated with a center of business, of course, international business, registration, ships registration international too, etc. And is every time an ex-force in the autonomy, regional autonomy, and central government, and central European government, of course, in Brussels, because the control is not easy. Only in Funchal stay the international tourism cruising ships is the most important port for receiving, like Canaries and Las Palmas and Tenerife is the same. There are a special articulation in the three European free zones, European autonomies, Azores, Madeira, and Canaries every time. And now an approachment with Cabo Verde. We call him, and there are many contacts about it. And the big regional bets to the turn of the millennium, of course, I presume that there are a mutation of the tourism and culture. The culture and tourism was the center of the development of the island, with a strong ex-force, for example, to the patrimonial. It's very interesting, for example, the ceiling of Cathedral of Funchal, 1514, is Islamic ceiling, was restored, and in 2033 have the prime Europa Nostra in Veneza, like the most important restore makes in Europe by that institution. Now you have other problems with the classification of the levadas. Levadas was the water canals. We support the classification of falage in Oman, the same. And now the falage have many problems too in the international UNESCO reports, but we're roving it. And by that, we need reforce and rebuilding. For example, the old Adwan that now is the regional legislative assembly. Look at the library maintenance, Islamic sailing too, and the reforce of the paper, of the roles of the university. The University of Madeira, it's interesting because it's a European university, and all the meetings with the central government and the regional government happens in the university, because there's a free the space is not it's a space in Madeira, but don't belongs to the control of regional government. This history of the role Azores, Madeira, and Canarias maybe was an example for the new route to the Sahara region. Is not easy. Our statute of autonomy spends 22 years to be approved in Lisbon. I repeat, the discussion of the final statute publication, the official publication, spends 22 years to be approved in Lisbon. But I presume that is the way. Thank you very much for your attention. And something that I can say about it? Okay, I try.
Thank you so much, Professor Carita. You can now stop sharing your screen. Okay, I will do it. Okay. So thank you so much. Of course, considering your profile and your interest, it was not surprising that you focus very much on the history of the autonomy and heritage aspect. But still, I try to actually pick out a few points that are quite relevant to our discussion about the Moroccan initiative. Well, first of all, as you said, historically, the development of the island started with the development of navigation, because it was very much connected to colonization, to settlement of foreign settlers, and also then it was developed through trade, fishing, tourism, trade with actually neighboring regions, including North Africa, Morocco, but also the Americas. And that led to, of course, develop infrastructure such as transport and ports for trade, that, of course, required the development of the establishment of customs duties, and also the organizations, the institutions to promote trade and investment. And perhaps the main difference is with Sahara is that the status of autonomy was claimed, was desired by Madeira, and it took some time, as you explained, to obtain, to be conceded by the government. And this was actually, the opportunity was the 1974 revolution. So the main difference is that in the case of Sahara, of course, we have sort of similar history of colonization, development, etc. But the autonomy is offered by the central government as a solution to a dispute, and doesn't necessarily originate from the region itself. So this is perhaps where I see the main difference. But then we see a lot of similarities, related to economic reforms, the development of industry, free zones, free trade zones, or free industrial zones. Of course, legislative autonomy. All these ingredients of autonomy we can also find again in the project for the autonomy of the West Sahara region. So I will stop here. Perhaps we'll at the end I'll try to come up with some more conclusions and recommendations. Now, next on our list is Dr. Maria Mout Bosque, who's adjunct professor of law at the International University of Catalonia in Spain. So she also comes from autonomous region, Catalonia, but she will not speak about that region. She has researched the autonomy of British overseas territories called the Crown Dependencies, the islands of Guernsey, Jersey, and the Isle of Man. And she's a lecturer in European international law at the International University of Catalonia. She received her doctorate in human, social, and legal sciences from that university and the University of London. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in public administration and political science from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and master's degrees in international studies from Center of International Studies in Barcelona, a postgraduate degree in community from that university, and a degree in business from the Pompeu Fabra University, and a degree in political science from the Open University in Catalonia. So a very rich and diverse academic background, and her interest, of course, as I said, includes the Commonwealth and British overseas territories, one of which, of course, is attached to Spain, Gibraltar, but she also worked and researched on discrimination against women and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and other related fields. So without further ado, I will let her speak about the very complex autonomous system developed by these crown dependencies, and we'll see how this will lead to something that could be of interest for the Moroccan region of Sahara. Over to you, Maria.
Hi, hello. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this interesting international research seminar. Special thanks to Mark, and to the Kingdom of Morocco, to Mrs. Maida Mouchou. Well, all my reflections, as Mr. Marfinot has told you, are must be contextualized within the framework of the Crown dependencies, which is my area of specialization. I would like to share with you, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it right, just my screen and show you where are located these Crown dependencies. Let me see if I guess it. Here is it. Okay. So here is it. Well, so can you see it? My screen? Okay. Well, so the first thing I should do is to show the differences between what are known as the British overseas territories and the Crown dependencies. Sometimes there is a mistake, or they are confusing, because they are both different kinds of territories. They share a lot of similarities from a legal perspective and from a political point of view, but they also differ in a different things that are relevant, not only for the UK, also for Morocco's process. So the Crown dependencies and the British overseas territories are two different types of territorial entities that are the result of their unique historic and constitutional realities. As a result of these different histories and relationship with the UK, each of these territories has its own constitutional status. Where we are going to focus on the Crown dependencies, and from a geographic point of view, the Crown Dependencies are the Isle of Man and the Channel Islands. You can see them on the map. The Channel Islands fall into two separate self-governing bailiwicks, the bailiwick of Jersey, including the uninhabited islands of Miniquers, Ecagos, Le Dinuel, Les Pierres, Lelec, and the bailiwick of Guernsey, consisting of Guernsey, Alderney, Sark, Herm, Hetu, Beccio, and a lot of small islands, and the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man is strategically located as it in the middle of the Irish Sea, almost equidistant between England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. The Crown Dependencies are neither large in size nor in population. The Isle of Man has a population of almost 86,000, and the total land area is 570 square kilometers, and the Channel Islands have a total population of almost 180,000 inhabitants, and the total area is 190 square kilometers. Well, these are the geographic details and the history of the Crown Dependencies. So historically, the Crown Dependencies differ from one to another. The Channel Islands are considered to be the remnants of the Duchy of the Normandy, while the Isle of Man was connected to Scandinavian rulers in the past. So different historical ties. The history of the Channel Islands comes back to the oldest monuments in European history, with some dating from 3,500 years before Christ, including dolmens, Neolithic standings. So it's really, really, really old. And none of them, neither the Channel Islands or the Isle of Man, have been considered colonies. So they are not considered colonies because they have never been colonized. So they are under British sovereignty, but they are not considered as colonies. So this is one of the key issues here, because the British overseas territories, which are 14 different British dependent territories, they are considered or they have a colonial past. So this is the main difference here. So this has international implications, and the international implications here are that the Crown Dependencies, as they are not considered colonial territories, they are not listed, they are not included in the United Nations list of self-governed or territory spending of the colonization, while the almost 12 of the 14 British overseas territories, they are included in this list, in the United Nations list, or they are pending of the colonization. So that's very important, and it's curious because this is something that comes from the different history that these territories have. Because in practice, as I will explain, they share a lot of similarities in regarding their status. But also, of course, they have some differences. So the Crown Dependencies, unlike the British overseas territories, as I have said before, they have never been colonies of the UK, and these territories have an ad hoc status resulting from the unique historic relationship with the British Crown. They are self-governing territories under British sovereignty, but with a distinct constitutional link to the UK. So they are not an integral part of the United Kingdom. They are separate, but they are under their sovereignty. They are self-governing territories under British sovereignty, but with this constitutional or special constitutional link. Despite being under British sovereignty, the Crown Dependencies are not an integral part of the UK and have never been colonies. Historically, as I mentioned before, they were feudatory kingdoms subject to the kings of England. The crown dependencies have a great degree of self-government and their own institutions. They have their own directly elected legislative assemblies and their own courts of law. As these territories are not an integral part of the United Kingdom, they cannot elect representatives to Westminster. So they don't have a direct representation on the UK Parliament. They have their own parliament. They have their own legislative assemblies. However, King Charles III is the head of the crown dependencies. So the British monarch is the head of these crown dependencies. In both the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man, the king is personally represented by the lieutenant governor. In the Channel Islands, there is a lieutenant governor in each bailiwick, and among the crown dependencies, there are statutory peculiarities and different institutions and territorial divisions. So what is very, very important to note is that their constitutional relationship with the UK is maintained through the crown, and it's not, sorry, it's not written in a formal constitutional document, because neither the crown dependencies have a codified constitution. The UK government is responsible for the defense and international relations of the islands. The rest of powers are under the crown dependencies legislative powers. So the UK cannot legislate for them. They have self-government in all areas except defense and international relations that fall under the powers of the United Kingdom. The Crown, acting through the British Crown, acting through the private council, is ultimately responsible for ensuring their good government. This is a very controversial power that the UK has. Neither the Crown dependencies nor the British overseas territories are part of the United Kingdom, so they cannot elect representatives to Westminster. However, in recent times, there have been advocates like the Conservative MP Andrew Rosendale, who claim that they should have their own political representatives in London. Regarding the international powers of the Crown dependencies, since they are not subjects of international law, they are not states, they are not independent states, they don't possess international legal personality. Consequently, they cannot conclude international treaties on their own or send or receive official international representatives, ius legationis. Moreover, only states have this capacity and also other capacities like sue or be sued for breach of international obligation. But in this case, as they don't have legal personality, it's the UK that has international responsibility for them. Since these are international prerogatives reserved exclusively for states. But this doesn't mean that the Crown dependencies are not able to play a role on the international stage as international actors. The UK recognizes the Crown dependencies' desire to develop their own separate international identity, and the UK has allowed them to have their mechanisms in order that they can play a role in international relations. The UK has enabled these mechanisms, which recognize the Crown dependencies' limited authority to conduct external relations on their own behalf, including the negotiation and conclusion of international agreement, usually in a specific and limited manner. Most commonly, they can conclude their own agreements on taxation, tax, information exchange agreements, but this is limited. It needs the formal authorization of the United Kingdom. Normally, this authorization of the United Kingdom is done by the entrustment, a letter of entrustment. And this letter of entrustment needs to be requested by the Crown dependencies, and be granted by the UK. Of course, it needs the willingness and conformity of the other parties to enter into an agreement with the Crown dependencies under or above mentioned circumstances. So that means that even if the Crown dependencies have limited powers regarding international relations, the UK has created some mechanisms that allow them to play a role in international relations, and they can, for example, conclude their own treaties in taxation on other issues, but normally it's in taxation. And this is because the UK has allowed them to do it through this letter of entrustments. Regarding their international presence in international organizations, the Crown dependencies are able to attend international meetings, but as part of the United Kingdom delegation. They cannot have their own delegation, with certain exceptions. But again, they need the special authorization of the United Kingdom. So we have the case of Jersey, which is a member of the Francophonie, and it's a full member. And this is because it has this authorization from the United Kingdom. So, and if we compare to the British Overseas Territories, and the British Overseas Territories, I'm going to share the screen, and I want to show you where they are located. Let me see. I'm sorry. Here they are. Okay. So you can see that they are spread all over the world. This is the difference. The British Overseas Territories, I told you that they have this, or they are considered as the last remnants of the colonial past of the United Kingdom. So it's different from the Crown dependencies, but they have a great, or some of them, most of them, they have a great amount of self-government. So they also have their own institutional structure. They have written constitutions, which is a difference with the Crown dependencies, because the Crown dependencies, they don't have a written, well, they have written, they don't have codified constitutions, but the British Overseas Territories, they do have. In these constitutions, they recognize the right of self-determination, and also they have their own institutions, they have their own legislative assemblies, they have their own representatives in those legislative assemblies, and they have also limited powers in international relations, and these limited powers in international relations are very similar to the Crown dependencies ones. So in the case of the British Overseas Territories, they also have this possibility to be authorized by the United Kingdom in order to conclude their own international agreements, or they have the possibility of being part of international organizations by their own, but they need that letter of entrustment. So it was very similar that in the case of the Crown dependencies. Final crucial consideration revolves around the controversial power of the United Kingdom, which is the direct rule to ensure good governance in dependent territories. So while internal affairs typically fall under the jurisdiction of each territory, the United Kingdom bears the responsibility for ensuring good governance. Essentially, if the United Kingdom perceives that the local government fails to ensure good governance, it reserves the right to impose direct rule. So it means that if the United Kingdom perceives that they are not doing it really well, that they are not complying with this requirement of good governance, the United Kingdom could control the legislative powers of those territories, and the UK could legislate for them. But this is exceptional. This is exceptional, and it's only in cases of serious corruption or when has happened something really, really serious. This is very controversial, and it has been connected to British overseas territories. And we don't really know, because as the Crown dependencies do not have a written or a codified constitution, we don't really know if the UK has that power in case that the Crown dependencies fail the good governance. It's true that, as we will see later, there were voices in the government that, and the UK government, or in the opposition of the UK government, that wanted, or that talk about the possibility of imposing direct rule to the Crown dependencies because of this controversial issue of the tax havens and all these issues regarding the tax policies and privileges that they have, but they have never done it. But they have been threatened to be done it. So this is a very, very controversial power that the UK has. So ordinarily, regularly, the United Kingdom's legislative power only can be extended to areas where it holds express competence, like defense, nationality, citizenship, succession to the throne, or international relations. Apart from these areas, these Crown dependencies and also the British, or most of the British overseas territories, they have self-government and they can legislate by their own. And it comes one of the most interesting issues regarding my research on the Crown dependencies and the British overseas territories. So despite having a very, very similar status, we can see that they have a very different international status, because the Crown dependencies have never been considered colonies, so they are not listed in the United Nations list. By contrast, 10 of the 14 British overseas territories are included in this list and are considered territories pending of decolonization by the Special Committee of 24. What is also paradoxic is that some of these territories, some of these British overseas territories that are listed in this United Nations list of territories pending of decolonizations, they don't want to be there. So the people that inhabits in those territories, they don't want to be in that list, like the case of Gibraltar. The government of Gibraltar has expressly said that they don't want to remain in that list, and they want to be they don't want to be in that list anymore. But there are other territories, British overseas territories, like the case of the Chagos Islands, which is a very controversial case, and the sovereignty of these islands have been claimed by Mauritius. It's not listed in the United Nations list of territories pending of decolonization, despite of the International Court of Justice or the Tribunal of the Sea have said that this is an unsolved question of decolonization, of British decolonization. So again, this list is a very controversial list regarding these British overseas territories. So this is a big consideration, and the big question here is, what shall a territory do in order to be removed from that list? What is the secret, or how a territory can be removed from that list? And well, if we consult the United Nations Assembly or institutions, there are 3 ways of not being included in that list. And the first one is to become independent, so that the territory achieves independence. The second formula is to be integrated with an independent state. So to become part of that state, this is the formula that different territories have done with their colonies. And there is a third way, which is the free associate status, which is it's not a sovereign state. It's linked to a state, but it has a great amount of autonomy. In practice, this free association way or status, the free association status, is very, very similar to the crown dependencies status. So that means that, and also it's very, very similar to some of the British overseas territories formula. So the thing is that it could be a way to be removed to the United Nations list of territories pending of decolonization. But again, to become a free associate state is not very clear. We don't really know how to achieve this status because it's not well defined. And if we consult the different cases of free association within the international community, we can see that there is a great variety of them. We have the case of Puerto Rico, we have the case of Niue, and they are totally different. They are free associate states, but they have the great differences. But anyway, I mean, it's a very interesting status to be considered. So this is regarding the international issues that I wanted to comment. And well, another thing that I would like to reflect on, having this chance to have this reflection with you, is the evolutionary nature of the crown dependency status. As we mentioned before, the crown dependency status is a result of a firmly consolidated historical and political relationship with the United Kingdom. However, this status cannot be understood as a static issue, since these territories and their people are constantly evolving in terms of identity. Throughout the years, the crown dependencies have expressed their wish to continue developing their self-government, particularly at the international level. So in our view, all these claims should be addressed through negotiation and may or not may result in a change of status, since the legal regime of their current status is not constitutionally limited. There is not a limitation. They can be wherever they want, but we need negotiation from both parties. It is worth noting that neither the United Kingdom nor the crown dependencies have codified constitutions that requires reform. So in terms of, in a pragmatic point of view, it would be easier to solve and to advance or develop this status. And well, regarding the tax system of the crown territories, the crown dependencies, this is a very controversial issue. The crown dependencies are self-governing possessions of the crown, distinct from both the United Kingdom and the British overseas territories, as I have said before. They maintain a unique constitutional relationship with the United Kingdom, granting them substantial autonomy, particularly regarding taxation and trade matters. Unlike the crown dependencies, other autonomous regions that are an integral part of the United Kingdom, like Scotland, they do not benefit from the same tax privileges due to their different political and legal status and historical relationship with the United Kingdom. So again, it's a very important, the status is the key issue here, because this is what makes different one territory from another, what explains why the crown dependencies have these tax privileges and Scotland does not have these same privileges, or the British overseas territories have privileges too, is the status. They have different status. And this status, they provide them more self-government and more freedom in order to have their own legislation. This also gives stability. Stability is the main issue here to create this sense or this capacity to have investment, to have trade, to attract investors. You need political stability. And well, regarding this tax autonomy, the crown dependencies, as they have independent legislative powers, they have their own parliaments, their own legislative assemblies, can pass their own legislation, including tax law. This means that they can set their own tax rates and regulations without needing the approval of the United Kingdom Parliament. The economic strategy, this autonomy allows the crown dependencies to create tax environments that attract business and individuals, often offering lower tax rates compared to other jurisdictions. So this is a very, very important part of this economic strategy, this freedom of creating their own economic strategy different from the United Kingdom. The constitutional status, the self-governments, the crown dependencies has a high degree of self-governance. They manage their own domestic affairs, including taxation, while the UK is responsible for their defense and international representation. And non-UK jurisdiction. Since the crown dependencies are not part of the United Kingdom, the United Kingdom tax laws do not automatically apply there. This separation is crucial to their ability to set independent tax policies. But as I said before, this is very controversial, and there is an international controversy and reforms. They have this, or they have to face this tax haven criticism. The crown dependencies have faced international scrutiny for their tax regimes, often being labeled as tax havens. This has led to criticisms that their tax policy erode tax bases in other countries by attracting business and individuals seeking lower tax liabilities. So they had a lot of international pressure. They have faced a lot of international pressure to change this legislation, to change these privileges. And in response to growing international pressure and to avoid this tax haven label, the crown dependencies have actively engaged in reforms to align with global tax standards. So it's the G20 tax reform project. In 2021, the G20 approved new international taxation rules targeting business with group of turnovers exceeding 750 million euros. And the crown dependencies have committed to a joint approach to meet these reforms, demonstrating their willingness to adhere to emerging global tax norms. So they have done different adjustments. They have tried to comply with different rates, but the truth is that the new rules, the G20 rules, will primarily affect large multinational business, while the majority of companies in the crown dependencies will continue to operate under the current corporate tax regimes. So it needs to be done much more development. So my conclusion in this section is that the crown dependencies' ability to exercise tax autonomy is deeply rooted in their unique constitutional status. This autonomy allows them to set independent tax policies, fostering economic growth through favorable tax environments. However, this status comes with international scrutiny, pushing the crown dependencies to adopt reforms that align with global tax standards. The recent commitment to G20 tax reform underscores their efforts to balance autonomy with international compliance, ensuring they are not perceived merely as tax havens. Any other region seeking similar tax privileges would need to reconsider its constitutional status to achieve comparable autonomy and capabilities. So yes, I want also just to explain that when the UK was a member of the European Union, the Crown dependencies also, they had a special treatment or special regime under Protocol 3 of the Treaty of Accession of the UK Treaty of Accession to the European Union. So that means that they were not part of the common market. They only had a special treatment regarding the free movement of goods, but they didn't have free movement of services, they didn't have free movement of people, so they have an exceptional regime. And again, this is because of their status, this unique status, while the British overseas territories, which were or has similarities, they were treated under different regimes. They have different status under European Union law. So finally, my final considerations to finish my reflections here in this seminar is that the paramount observation to underscore in this conclusion is that the status of the crown dependencies is a singular one resulting from a unique historical reality. It is a formula that has successfully integrated historical privileges and transformed them into a special modern legal regime with a unique constitutional link to the United Kingdom through the crown. And this is very important. The crown is the symbol and the link, the bond between the United Kingdom and these territories. So they owe allegiance to the crown. So who knows what would happen if the UK becomes a republic? We can discuss that, no? But this is something uncertain, no? Because their bond, their link to the United Kingdom is through the crown, because they are crown dependencies. In this regard, it is important to highlight that the British monarchy plays a significant role beyond the merely symbolic role in giving meaning to this status. Although this status is unique, it shares many similarities with the status of the British overseas territories. However, a fundamental difference is the one that I have commented before, that is they are not included in the United List of territories pending of decolonization, despite their similarities, as they are territories that have never been considered as colonies, whereas most of the British overseas territories are regarded as colonial territories. This implies that the attribution of status to a territory pending decolonization must respect and adapt to the historical and political peculiarities of that territory and be capable of establishing a legal and economic regime consistent with those peculiarities in accordance with international law. In this sense, each colonial case is distinct and requires the study of an hoc solution. Homogenizing formulas are generally unsatisfactory in the short term and pose problems and difficulties in the medium and long term. So I hope this can be useful, and well, I'm open to debate or to discuss all the ideas that can raise from my presentation. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Mary. Very interesting presentation of course, very peculiar cases due to long history, but with interesting features that deserve some comparison with of course, you made this comparison with the overseas territories, UK overseas territories, but of course, we can also compare them with the provisions of the Moroccan initiative for the Sahara region. I will not do this now for the sake of time, not to delay too much the other speakers, but I will probably come back in the conclusion part. So next on our agenda is Dr. Mawardi Ismail, who's a retired lecturer from the Faculty of Law at the University of Sia in Aceh, Indonesia. And he has, I will, again, for the sake of time, I will not read his whole CV, which is very detailed, but of course he is an academic specialized in law, and in also his other experience includes members of Aceh's parliament, the vice dean and then dean of the Faculty of Law of that university, also member of the working group of Aceh's governor, expert staff for Aceh's parliament, expert staff for the governor of Aceh, and he was closely associated with all the negotiations and discussions for the autonomy of Aceh from Indonesia. Aceh, as you know, was seeking independence, and there was some violent conflict, and this was solved through mediation of the former Finnish president. And of course, now we have a very detailed status of autonomy for Aceh. So Dr. Ismail will talk mainly about the tax system and the fiscal system in Aceh to promote development and investment. Over to you, Dr. Ismail.
Okay, it. Hello, everyone. Terima kasih lupa dulu. Bisa lihat layarnya. Bisa lihat layarnya. Can you see it, Mark? Hello.
Yes, but can you put the slideshow mode? This little screen. Okay, great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I want to present my paper with the topic foreign investment after special autonomy in Aceh. As we know that Morocco and Indonesia are two developing countries that are facing internal conflicts in the form of rebellion to spirit themselves from the central government. As we know that in Morocco, there are Polisario movement and the Free Aceh movement in Indonesia. It is fortunately that the conflict caused by Free Aceh movement can be resolved through Helsinki MOU facilitated by international NGO CMI, led by President Marty Ahtisaari. But unfortunately, for the Morocco, the peace process is not success yet. It is in the process. There are different between Morocco and Indonesia. If Indonesia facilitated by CMI, international NGO, and for the process of peace in Morocco, facilitated by Security Council, United Nations. And until now, it is still in the process. For the Aceh movement, under the MOU, the Helsinki MOU, there are some point that the government of Indonesia should promulgate the law, and under that law should give to Aceh special autonomy. What special autonomy mean is that Aceh will has broader autonomy than other province. Aceh will has the big authority, even it is not central, it is not self-government, but it is the special autonomy that where Aceh have more autonomy comparison with the other province. And at the end of the MOU, why we should know why the Aceh movement proclaimed independence. It is because of, as we know, Aceh is the poorest province in Sumatra. If you see the map, Aceh laid in the western part of Sumatra, and until now, Aceh is the poorest province in Sumatra. For the national level, Aceh is the sixth poor province at the national level. So that under the special autonomy, where Aceh has more authority, they hope that Aceh will solve the poverty and then how to gain the welfare. Investment, as we know, is a quick way to create jobs. Create jobs as part of poverty alleviation effort that must be carried out for the welfare of the people. For this, Indonesia needs large capital to encourage investment that cannot be fulfilled from within the country. And there's a problem. It is a problem not only for Aceh, but also for the whole province, the whole province in Indonesia. So that foreign investment is an alternative to increase investment. Does special autonomy status for Aceh as part of Indonesia have the effect of increasing foreign investment? It is what we will discuss in this event. In relation to effort to resolve conflict through granting autonomy, there are several issues that we want to discuss. First, the extent to which the autonomy status can encourage increased foreign direct investment to the autonomous region. For this point, we find that really, theoretically, and legally, the autonomy status can encourage increased foreign direct investment. But in fact, it is not in fact. Why? Because as we know that the security is not the only factor that pull the investment to the province. There are so many factors pull, so many factors so many factors need to increase foreign direct investment. The second, what role are carried by central government and local government to accelerate foreign investment? For this point, central government and local government, both of them has created some policy, such as there are some law and local law to accelerate, to facilitate, to make investment easy and to provide some facilities. And then we will to know what benefit can the autonomous region gain from the existence of the foreign direct investment. There are so many benefits, of course, and then we will see at the next. For what assets and facilities can be provided by central and local government to encourage increased foreign investment. Until now, there are some law and some local law has been promulgated to make investment easy and to provide facilities. Even there are so many factors that affect investment, but there are 4 important factors that affect investment, namely potential benefit, legal certainty, available facilities and assets, and security certainty. From this factor, it turns out that the factor of potential profit and facilities and assets are more dominant than other factors. We can see before and during the conflict in Aceh, there was a considerable foreign investment in the oil and gas sector by the mobile oil company, namely the LNG industry. This investment is also considered to be the trigger for the birth of the Free Aceh movement. Why? Because as we know that surrounding the industry complex, there are poor village, and this trigger the how to say Free Aceh movement. That does not preclude foreign investment, but such investment require a large cost of security. We know at that time, the government and the company should provide big budget for security. But because of potential benefit is big, so the security is not the problem at that time. But for ordinary investment, indeed security conditions are an important factor. That is what happened during the Aceh conflict, where investment stalled and even many investors moved their businesses outside Aceh. For this reason, we can see that security is very important for ordinary investment. It is unfortunately, after conflict can be resolved, the investor who moved outside Aceh didn't come back to Aceh. It is the problem. And now, during the conflict, we can see that there are some foreign investment in Aceh. Why there are foreign investment because foreign investment bring some advantage to the region, to the Aceh. Among that is the creation of jobs that will reduce unemployment. It is only reduce poverty. The second, increase in local original revenue in the form of regional taxes and regional levies. It is very important because, as we know that Aceh is the poor province. The next is to increase economic and business activity as a multiplier effect of investment activity. The next is the occurrence of technology transfer, which is very important. The existence of spatial autonomy, accompanied by the granting of authority in the field of investment to the region, is an incentive for capital investment, including foreign investment. But that alone is not enough, because it turned out that investment in other regions that do not have spatial autonomy is better. There are some provinces in Sulawesi and some provinces in Kalimantan. The investment there is bigger than in Aceh. Even there are no spatial autonomy. As comparison, also not yet effective. The investment opportunities offered by the Kingdom of Morocco. Now we will explain later about the investment in Morocco as a comparison. If in Indonesia, we can see that foreign investment is influenced by security, except for the project that have potential benefit. So as comparison, also not yet effective. The investment opportunities offered by the Kingdom of Morocco to the Western Sahara region in the proposal Moroccan initiative for negotiating an autonomy status for the Sahara region when 1.5 and 1.6 are broader than the authority in the investment sector in the context of implementing regional autonomy in general and spatial autonomy in Indonesia. And we can see that in Morocco, Morocco has made so many efforts that the ranking of the ease of doing business has improved repeatedly from 69th in 2018 to 53rd in 2020. It is a spectacular progress. Morocco is also determined to establish itself as the gateway to Africa in investment. This looks that there are so many hope for the Morocco to gain welfare for the Western Sahara. In Indonesia, to increase investment, the central government and the local government, based on the authority obtained through the special autonomy status, provide various ACS and facilities regulated in regional regulation. This policy is not in the other province. In the local law, there are what we say in Aceh, we say kanun. There are some policy, such as encourage the creation of a conducive climate for investment to strengthen Aceh competitiveness in the national and international economy, and then accelerate the increase in investment. The next, make optimal use of investment opportunities as mandated in the law on the government of Aceh and the law on investment. So in Indonesia, there are two laws that regulate. First is for Aceh, it is special law, what we say the law number 11, 2006, and there are another law for the national level. And the next, provide equal opportunities for domestic investment and foreign direct investment, while taking into account Aceh's and national interests in accordance with law and regulation. The next, ensure security and legal certainty in doing business for investor from the license process until the end of investment activities in accordance with law and regulation. And then to encourage and open opportunities and protection for the development of MMS and cooperation, to increase productivity and competitiveness for realization of prosperity and welfare of the people and uphold Islamic values. As you know that in Aceh, there are Sharia Islam. Uphold Islamic values, justice, equality, and people participation, and be efficient. Theoretically and legally, special autonomy should make it easier for investment, but there are need to be other factors that show investment increase. So that, however, the special autonomy for Aceh has resulted in security assurance, which has thus removed one of the barriers to the investment. The factor of large profit potential has a greater effect on increasing investment. Many other regions with a special autonomy have more investment compared to special autonomous region. So now we come to the conclusion and recommendation. Based on the description above, there are several conclusions can be drawn as follows. First, investment, both domestic and foreign direct investment, what we say in Bahasa, penanaman modal asing, is a very important economic activity in order to accelerate the realization of people welfare. Second, number two, the central government has made various efforts in order to accelerate the realization of planting by issuing supporting regulation, including by forming Law Number 6, 2023, concerning job creation, which revised 81 laws. 3, there are many factors that encourage investment in a region, including profit potential, availability of natural resources, legal certainty, and eases of licensing and security certainty. Among these factors, the availability of natural resources and profit potential seem to be more influential. It is more influential than special autonomy. 4. In terms of investment, Indonesia is still lagging behind compared to other developing countries. The World Bank still ranks Indonesia 54th out of 190 countries in terms of easy doing business. In this case, the Kingdom of Morocco is in a better position, which is ranking 53rd. 5. Also not yet effective. The investment opportunities offered by the Kingdom of Morocco to the Western Sahara region in the proposal Moroccan initiative for negotiating an autonomy status for the Sahara region on 1.5 and 1.6 are broader than the authority in the investment sector in the context of implementing regional autonomy in general and special autonomy in Indonesia. 6. In particular, Aceh has wider authority than other autonomous regions. The authority in the field of foreign direct investment is the authority of Aceh based on law number 11 of 2006, while for other regions, foreign investment is the authority of the central government based on law number 23 of 2014. 7. Also Aceh through national regulation and regional regulation, Kanun Aceh number 5 of 2018 has provided various facilities and incentives in investing, but still investment activities have not shown optimal development and result. 8. There are still several obstacles in the realization of investment, including complicated regulation and legal uncertainty, difficult land acquisition, uneven public infrastructure, taxes, and other non-fiscal incentives that do not support investment. And 5, inadequate skilled labor. 9. In terms of foreign investment authority, there is still dissimilarity of understanding between the central government, Minister of Investment and head of BKPM, and the government of Aceh. Even so, Article 165, paragraph 2 of law number 11, 2006 expressly stipulates that foreign investment is the authority of Aceh. This creates legal insufficiency, which become an obstacle in the realization of investment. 10. Investment provides many benefits to the region, including the creation of jobs, increasing of local original revenue, increased economic and business activities as multiplier effect of investment activity, and the occurrence of technology transfers. Based on the above conclusion, it is recommended the government, the central government, should strive to create a common perception of regulation governing foreign investment in Aceh. So there is no paradox in law. And then B, the central government and the government of Aceh should increase socialization about the ACE's investment and investment facilities available in Aceh. It is important to attract the investor, especially foreign investor, to come to Aceh. See, the central government And the government of Aceh should continuously improve the provision of infrastructure related to investment. The infrastructure, the power of infrastructure are the problem in Aceh. Why? Because, as we know, there are too long conflict in Aceh, more than 30 years conflict. So that after the conflict can be resolved through the Helsinki MOU, and for Aceh, the government, the central government, give the more authority, including in the foreign investment, so that we hope that the central government should seriously in giving this authority. I think that's all what we can provide and we can present at this event. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mawardi. Again, this is a very detailed presentation of the complexity of dealing with tax systems, investments, incentives in an autonomous region. Thank you also for mentioning the Moroccan initiative, and you rightly pointed out that it is more ambitious, more developed, has a broader scope than the current relationship between Aceh and the central government. And for the sake of time, I will not go into the detail, but I'll do that later in the conclusions. But thank you very much. And we move on to the next speaker, Mr. Johnny Grotinum, who is a teaching lecturer at the University of the Faroe Islands. He's an experienced economist and former chief executive officer of public institutions in the Faroe Islands, in the banking sector, the National Hospital, and the National TV and Radio Broadcasting Company. He's also a business consultant and also a teaching lecturer at the University of the Faroe Islands. And today he's the chairman of the board of the Governmental Bank of the Faroe Islands and the chairman of the Economic Council of the Faroe Islands. And he received his degree in economics from the University of Copenhagen. So over to you, Johnny.
Thank you. Now I'm just going to try to share the screen here, see if that works. That was a failure. Should probably just share the presentation, right? So can you see the slides now?
Yes, but not, yes, yeah, that's good.
All right. So, yeah, this is just a map showing where in the world the Faroe Islands are, located in the North Atlantic between Iceland and Norway. And it's a part of the Danish Kingdom of Denmark, just like Greenland is, and Iceland used to be. But the agenda for my presentation today is based, of course, on the paper prepared for this seminar, which will be updated during this week. But I'll say a few words about the historical background for foreign direct investments in the Faroe Islands. I'll comment somewhat on the current economic climate and show how the foreign direct investments have fueled economic development in recent years. And I'll also comment somewhat on the changing conditions for foreign direct investments in some sectors, and that can also, support some of the messages from the presenter from Indonesia regarding natural resources and the handling of that. then also how we as an autonomous region are capitalizing on the ample access to international capital markets, being an economy at a high level and have good access to capital markets. And so I'll just conclude with showing that the Faroe Islands are an example of a top modern society with a high level of living standards, but still remaining an autonomous region in the Kingdom of Denmark. And I'll conclude with some comparison with the Moroccan initiative for the autonomy of the Sahara region. So this is a map, a closer map to the Faroe Islands, of course. We are 18 islands located here in the North Atlantic, an autonomous region within the Kingdom of Denmark. And thereby we have a distinct legal and administrative framework that significantly influences our economic policies and also foreign direct investment specifically. In contrast to Denmark, the Faroe Islands are not a member of the European Union, which is similar to the description which Maria did about the islands under the English crown or British crown, that they were outside the EU while Britain was inside the EU. That is the same goes for the Faroe Islands, that Denmark is part of the EU, but the Faroe Islands are not. So consists of 18 islands located here, and only 54,000 inhabitants. So we're quite a select few living on these faraway islands. So we have our own parliament, 33 elected members, who in turn elect executive body, which is headed by a chairman or Lagman, we call it, like a prime minister. But we have the common king as Denmark. So we have the same king who comes and visits us and is this kind of symbol head of the country as well, as he is for the whole kingdom. But foreign policy, defense, and monetary policy, and also the judicial systems are not part of our government. So that are those areas of governance are overseen by the Danish parliament. So the historical background for foreign direct investments, I just want to start with a definition of foreign direct investment, since that as an economist I prefer to be precise, and this is a definition from OECD, that foreign direct investments is the category of cross-border investment in which an investor resident in one economy establishes a lasting interest in and a significant degree of influence over an enterprise resident in another economy. So typically defined by ownership of over 10% or more of the voting power in an enterprise. That can be like one parameter to identify such a relationship. So FDI has been a key element in international economic integration because it creates stable and long-lasting links between economies. So this is in contrast with portfolio investments. So, for example, pension funds, investing in several shares, equities all over the world. They will, also come with capital, risk-free capital, but that's different from foreign direct investments. So when I'm speaking about foreign direct investments in the Faroes, it's according to this definition. So historically, basically the first commercial bank to be established in the Faroe Islands was a subsidiary of a large Danish bank. This is back in 1906. So this is kind of the first example of FDI in the Faroes. And calm down, I will not be detailing all the stories since 1906, just show some points. So early 30s, the second commercial bank, but that was established by Faroese companies, Faroese investors. And some of the large fishing companies, which were trying to do investments back then, they needed also risk capital, loans from foreign shipyards constructing their fishing vessels. So we have depended on foreign direct investment all the way back from basically the start of us as a separate society. So when did that start? Well, during World War II, the Faroe Islands were occupied by the United Kingdom because Germany, as you probably know, occupied Denmark in 1940. So the Brits overtook the Faroe Islands, overseeing it, but promising Denmark to hand it back to Denmark as soon as the war, they hoped, would be over. So for 5 years, we were cut off from political and commercial contact with Denmark. So although this was a military presence by United Kingdom, this can also be viewed as foreign direct investments, since the Brits invested in a new airport and other important infrastructure projects. The year after World War II ended, and the ties were reconnected with Denmark, this led to a vote of independence, since we had experienced independence in praxis. And so although a small majority of votes were actually voted against full sovereignty, it was just almost half and half, but there was a small majority against full sovereignty. Denmark acknowledged this aspiration for more independence and granted the Faroe Islands a new status as a semi-autonomous region in the Kingdom of Denmark. So this was the home rule, so-called home rule legislation, which was established from 1948. And hereby we established our own parliament and government and areas of expertise which we were supposed to govern ourselves. So some parts are governed by Denmark and some parts are by us. And since there are still areas, as I explained earlier, monetary policy and defense and foreign affairs, which are dealt with by the Danish government, we also have the opportunity to elect 2 representatives to the Danish parliament. Danish transport companies have invested in the Faroes, both with regards to airliners, ferries, and so forth. But Faroese companies also established their own companies in these sectors afterwards. Also, the Danish government established strong fiscal ties with the Faroe Islands, originally at least, with an annual fiscal grant of substantial size relative to the economy to fund investments in infrastructure and provision of public services, to have the same level of welfare as in Denmark. In more recent years, Icelandic and Norwegian companies have invested in fisheries and fish farming sectors, also pension funds and other institutional investors. But the 2 financial crises have actually put the relationship with Denmark back on the agenda from being, just being in the background. We had this financial crisis back in the 90s, which was also in the Nordics in general, where the Faroese banking sector was re-established, funded with loans from the Danish state. We actually lost around 15 to 20% of the inhabitants moved abroad because of this crisis. And in 1999, the Faroese government entered negotiations with the Danish government about conditions for full independence, so for full sovereignty. But that ended in the Danish government threatening with cutting all ties and all the fiscal grant in very short time. And so instead of getting full independence, the Faroese government people got more responsibility, so to speak. So we got this Assumption Act and Foreign Policy Act of 2005 were implemented as a consequence of this process, which delegated more responsibility to the Faroe Islands and also providing opportunity to assume more responsibility if we wish to do that. And as a consequence, also the grant from Denmark was reduced and also frozen nominally to the same fiscal support every year. In 2010, there was, of course, this other financial crisis in 2008 with the Lehman Brothers and large international. That also ended with one of our large Faroese banks going bankrupt and was reconstructed by the Danish state, banking we call fiscal stability. 1 year later, Faroese companies reacquired this bank back and is in Faroese hands again. And I just want to mention a specific case, which is a very large investment case, a very successful story for the Faroe Islands, which is, as already I have explained, is a very small community. In 2010, Bakkafrost, which is the largest fish farming company, not to be mixed with fishing company. So fish farming is much more industrial in nature. So I'll just show a few pictures later. But that was listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange to attract risk-willing foreign investments for this sector. And of course, that was, for portfolio investments and not necessarily for foreign direct investments. So it was a success story where the company today is valued at a stunning 35 billion Danish kroner, which is far above the total GDP of the Faroe Islands. So it's very valuable. And this strong economic growth, which we have seen during this period since 2010, or rather 12-13, has also fueled growth in population. So we both have got a lot of Faroese people moving back to the islands after moving abroad, both during the original fiscal crisis in the 90s and also the financial crisis of 2008 and 10. But we have seen growth in jobs in the economy as a whole. So the current economic climate is very positive. So the Faroe government still receives an annual grant, but it's, as I mentioned, fixed nominally, and therefore is being reduced in real terms as the economy is growing. So it's only 2.5% of GDP now, but close to 8% of our total operating income of the public sector. The economy is booming, and there's production pressure, and there's also inflation as everybody else is experiencing. But over the last 10 years, we've had on annual growth, double the growth in Denmark. So 5.4% in 2022, and so it has been the highest, among the highest in Europe. So it's a small open economy that relies heavily on trade, of course, exports, and these are concentrated in fisheries, caught fish, and aquaculture, salmon farming business, which in total account for more than 90% of our exports. So the Faroese fisheries benefit greatly from able to fish in different waters. And so although we have had all these positives with regards to the corporate private sector, the public sector still has challenges in receiving a surplus on their budget, which is a challenge going forward, since we also have these challenges with an aging population and growing number of elderly people. But it is also natural that some of the profits of the common Faroese natural resources are redistributed. It's seen as natural, also with regards, because it's considered to be an economic rent. So both the fisheries and the fish farming business are paying a fair amount. As I show in the paper, it's almost over 2% of GDP, which these two sectors are paying in just extra taxes as an economic rent, besides paying wages and all that, and wage taxes that way. So just for the fish licenses and the fjord licenses to do these fish farming activities. So we have higher living standards than in Denmark now. So although we are part of the Danish kingdom, this growth in the last 10 years has moved us from being like 10-15% on average below Denmark. We are now at par and actually above with regards to living standards. So how has this quite impressive economic development come by, or what role has foreign direct investments played? Well, with this autonomous framework, the Faroese government has established some statutes and policy regarding to attract foreign investment, but also the government has certainly also put in place some laws limiting or at least controlling foreign direct investments in certain sectors related to natural resources. So in the aftermath of the financial crisis, the Faroese government put FDI on the agenda with some initiatives under the parole Invest in the Faroe Islands, adjusted some legal framework there in order to attract more foreign investments. But I certainly believe that foreign direct investments have played a crucial role in transforming the Faroese economy. So these sectors, agriculture, fisheries, and also tourism, they've benefited significantly from the foreign investments. And if we broaden, capital investments in general, then it's even more important, because through the banks and through the pension sector, the foreign capital has been crucial for fostering and funding investments in general. Specifically, the salmon farming industry has been heavily supported by investments from international pension funds and other investors. So they own 70-80% of this company, which is more valuable than the GDP, total GDP. And this investment and this solid company has been able to grow. Also, the two other fish farming companies have also increased a lot. So that has lifted the living standards through their investments and through being more and more productive. So this is almost 50% of their exports of goods now. So this is a panorama picture of the islands, which these fjords are the natural habitat for this fish farming cages where we farm these salmon. We don't catch a lot of salmon around the Faroes, but we have these fjords where they can have their industrial habitat of these cages, and thereby we can become an important player in the international salmon business. So Bakkafrost, Hidden Fjord is another company, and then Movi, the largest Norwegian company, is also present in the Faroe Islands. So that is also foreign direct investments, with all the knowledge and risk capital coming from Norway that way. So for the Faroes, produce and sell farmed salmon to most parts of the world. This is a map from the annual report of Bakkafrost, showing which markets they sell their farmed salmon to. So there have also been some changing conditions for foreign direct investments in some of the sectors in the Faroes. So I would like just to highlight that, so not to just speak of foreign direct investments as just a positive thing and which we have only handled well. As an economist, I think this is a challenging thing that we have done here. But nevertheless, there has been a political climate for limiting foreign direct investments, specifically in the fishing industry. So those fishing companies holding fishing licenses issued by the Faroese government, they used to have or were allowed to have a third foreign ownership, and that is still the case. But prior to 2032, these companies must be fully owned by Faroese citizens. So these foreign investments, they need to move out of the economy, of the society. Also, in the aquaculture fish farming business, there's been some constraints because there was a fear of foreign direct investments taking over the salmon industry business. There was actually one Norwegian company, offering to buy the full all the shares in one of the in Bakkafrost. But this was a law put in place in 2012, limiting that no single shareholder can hold more than 20% of the share capital. And that has also limited, but still, each and everyone can hold 19%. So basically, it can be foreignly owned, but it has to be a Faroese company domesticated in the Faroes, holding these licenses to farm our fjords. So how are we gaining capital for all the investments we are doing? I just want to give some example with regards to huge investments being made in the recent years, and also being made in the next years, which is in the infrastructure, our roads and so forth. That we are 18 islands, so we need some tunnels to move around also. So we have this credit opinion being this is the most recent one, by Moody's Investor Service, rating our country as a lender, a debtor rather, and we obtain finances from that credit rating and the situation we are in the Danish kingdom as well. So they highlight that in the worst consequences of default, Denmark as the Danish state would probably also support the Faroe Islands, our government. So we are actually capitalizing on that. And in recent years, foreign direct investments has not played a major role, as I define it, as a separate, but foreign capital lending loans have played a major role in expanding our investments. So public investments have been funded by taxes and, of course, issuance of debt. And over the next decade, the Faroe economy needs to make huge investments on, for example, green energy transition and also some subsea tunnels going forward. But we are quite well positioned as an economy to do that. This is a picture of one of our latest subsea tunnels, which was an investment of 1.5 billion Danish kroner. And that has actually decreased, transport time. This is, I won't dwell on this, but this is some of the tunnels and roads and so forth, which have been made in order to shorten time around the Faroe Islands. So from being 2 or 3 hours ride, it's now 1 hour ride to most or over 90% of the citizens in the Faroe Islands. So basically, to conclude, with regards to the Faroe Islands, it's a top modern society with one of the highest living standards in the world, although we are still an autonomous region in the Kingdom of Denmark. But we have this flexibility and have received the original support from Denmark, and also in crisis have capitalized on those that relationship. So foreign investors interested in the Faroe Islands can deal directly with foreign Faroese authorities. Faroese legislations on company registration is very aligned to EU legislation in order to facilitate investments. There's no joint control between Faroes and Danish government. It's controlled by Faroese government, and the same goes for taxing. And so it benefits the local economy definitely that these investments are being made, and also the results of that. And in particular, with regards to natural resources, we have full control over those sectors. Greenland, Åland, and the Isle of Man, I just want to mention that, have similar autonomous control over return on investments. So that was taxation. I don't want to dwell on this, and just this is another area of pelagic fisheries where we also have made several investments and capitalized on that. So just to conclude with a comparison with the Moroccan initiative for the autonomy of the Sahara region, the Faroe Islands is, of course, an archipelago separated from the mainland of Denmark, and we are utilizing our natural resources, while Sahara is a part of the continental territory of Morocco, closer to it, and that is, of course, why we are doing these, capitalizing on our natural competitiveness with regards to fish farming and fisheries, while Sahara region could diversify more and have more potential for industrialization. And the autonomous tax system is highly developed and has actually proved to be quite attractive for foreign direct investments. While you could, that role is still under negotiation with regards to Sahara, region of Sahara, sorry. And as shown in this presentation, the early support and funding of the Danish state for investments in infrastructure institutions were actually quite crucial for initial economic development. And the Faroese tax system, with its incentives and tax breaks, could actually be a model for Sahara region to follow. I think I did do it shorter than half an hour, so that was my messages.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. It's a very impressive presentation and full of very interesting details. And again, I won't comment now, but thank you for the last points, the comparison with the Moroccan initiative. Indeed, very relevant. And last but not least, over to Dr. Yahya Khamis Ahmad, who is the former Dean of Faculty in Law Sharia at Zanzibar University in Tasmania. Also, for the sake of time, I won't read his very rich CV. He has long experience in both as a lawyer, as an academic. He's worked with the government of Tanzania, the government of Zanzibar, the House of Representatives, and so he has this very mix of diverse mix of experience, working for government, working as a lawyer in the court system, and so and of course as a professor of law. Now, of course, as you realize, we've looked at cases of autonomy of countries in Europe and in Asia, and now we're moving to Africa, which doesn't have so many cases of autonomous regions, but certainly Zanzibar is a success story. And so we'll hear more from Dr. Yahya. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Can I start? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Here is already deep evening, and as the chairman is started, I'm looking for the Ambassador of Foreign Direct Investment in Zanzibar is one of the territorial regime with a kind of autonomy. And in introduction, actually, we have the Zanzibar Investments Act of 2023. This legal development is clearly indicating how the Zanzibar is earmarking to progress on those particular areas. And unlike the past of legislation in Zanzibar, the Act is broader in perspective as it covers various new areas or new aspects of investment. It covers almost everything except it doesn't cover investment in oil and gas upstreams, public-private partnership, joint venture with the government, investment agreements with the government, and investment in hazardous chemicals, firearms, weapons, and explosives. Investment in these areas are covered by special legal regimes outside of this particular investment act. But as has been said, Zanzibar is part of the United Republic of Tanzania. It is therefore important to explain the place of investment regime within this particular part of the world. And here I explain the political setup in Tanzania. Zanzibar is archipelago, consists of two main islands of Unguja and Pemba, and there are about 50 small islands. Some of these are inhabited, some are not inhabited, but both of them are constituting part of Zanzibar, and for that particular purpose are part of the United Republic of Tanzania. Zanzibar as a state existed as a sovereign People's Republic of Zanzibar until 26th April 1964, where it was united with the Republic of Tanganyika by then, to form Tanzania. Under the union setup, while the Republic of Tanganyika disappeared, of course, after that there was no Tanganyika, and all the particular areas of activities that were taken care by Tanganyika government was taken care by the United Republic of Tanzania. But Zanzibar had substantial amount of autonomy to determine its own affairs. That the union was styled that there was union matters that was covered in the Articles of Union, And of course, they can keep on increasing by the Parliament of the Native Republic of Tanzania. And there are areas which are only under the authority or under the hands of the revolutionary government of Zanzibar. These are termed as union matters. For that particular purpose, union matters are the autonomy of the Native Republic of Tanzania, plus the non-union matters as Tanganyika is concerned. Zanzibar is having authority only on non-union matters as far as Zanzibar itself is concerned. So for those non-union matters, as far as Zanzibar is concerned, the revolutionary government of Zanzibar is the final authority. You can say that we have our autonomy in those particular areas. But as we will see in the application, that particular autonomy is internal autonomy. Is outside Tanzania, the authorities of the United Republic of Tanzania. Yeah. On the investment side, during independence, 1963, there was independence. The new government was strongly in support of the private investment, and particularly those from abroad. Of course, there was a Bill of Rights which was protected that particular rights, including the right of investment. This climate that was favorable to investment and private property owners in general. However, this climate exactly lived only for 1 month after independence due to the revolution that took place on the 12th of January 1964. The independence government was by that particular revolution. The independence government was removed from power. The constitution was abrogated, and the country was ruled by decrees for the next 15 years. Properties were confiscated through decrees promulgated by the ruling Revolutionary Council. The union with Tanganyika, 3 months after the revolution, did not change this situation, which continued until the 1970s. The private sector was deprived any role in the economy of Zanzibar, and foreign private investment was discouraged. The revolutionary government was economically stable because of the high global prices of clothes, the main export of Zanzibar, which gave Zanzibar sufficient revenue, and therefore they could not be thinking of any alternative business. Zanzibar did not have foreign debt at that particular time, and it could afford to maintain its own foreign reserves. Foreign private investors were thus a mere luxury for that particular time. But in 1917, two things happened. Firstly, there was a steep decline in the price of clothes on the world market. Secondly, more countries, and particularly island states of Far East, had started producing high quality clothes and thus affecting the Zanzibar monopoly. Hence, diversification of the economy suddenly became a priority #1 of Zanzibar. The role was assigned to the private sector, and especially attracting foreign investors to Zanzibar to contribute to its economic growth. The result was enactment of the first investment code in 1986. With this legislation in place, investors began to trickle in slowly. The second investment act followed in 2004, and the third one in 2018, which operated until 2013, where the current statute was enacted. And this enactment was became law in February 2024 after being assented by the president. And it has the statute which covers all about investment in Zanzibar is having 9 parts. It covers 9 parts. The first part is preliminary provisions. Then we have part 2 on establishment of the authority responsible for running investment. Management. Number 3 is management and administration of the authority. Part 4 is on investment certification and and incentives. We have Part 5 on right and obligation of authority and investors, designation of special economic zone, financial provisions, offenses and penalties, and miscellaneous provisions. This is the coverage of the Act which deal with investment issues in Zanzibar. But there are a number of issues. There are 5 in number. They talk about proceedings of the board under ZIPA, investment capital threshold, incentives for investors outside special economic zone, incentive for strategic investment, and incentive for investors in special economic zone. About the authority which govern the investment administration in Zanzibar, and the section 4, this has been established as Zanzibar Investment Promotion Act, and it is a body corporate. It has the power to sue and can be sued. It can acquire property. It can dispose movable and immovable property, lending, and all other aspects of a body corporate. The authority is funded by the government, the revolutionary government of Zanzibar. Of course, it's a government entity. According to the Part 7 of the Act, the funds and resources of the authority are mainly appropriated by the Zanzibar House of Representatives under the ordinary budget. Other resources, including monies received from services rendered by authority, lawful grants, gifts, donations, and all other aspects of money that can be obtained by an entity. Also, the ZIPA, which is called the Zanzibar Investment Promotion Act, authority, shall retain 100% of money collected in the all official financial arrangement. And the budget of ZIPA is prepared by the executive director of the ZIPA and approved by the board, which is the supreme organ of the authority. Annual statements to the authority are subject to audit like any other public office. And then we come to function of ZIPA. What is of importance here to see that all these particular aspects are run outside any link with most of them about the powers of ZIPA are exercised without any influence from the central government. It's only the government in Zanzibar which deals with all that particular exercises. So for where the central government is having influence, we will see under the other parts of this particular act. But functions of the ZIPA is to create the best enabling environment for promotion, facilitation, and protection for investment, enhance investment competitiveness, promote Zanzibar to be an attractive destination for investment and business, determine investment opportunities available in the country, and the modalities of assessing them in liaison with relevant authorities, initiate and undertake necessary researches and apply the result of such researches after approval from relevant authorities in Zanzibar, periodically monitor and evaluate the progress of approved investments, ensure the investments granted to the investors are directed to the project and adhere to the investors' submitted business plan, establish, coordinate, and enhance national, regional, and international collaboration to ensure smooth running of investment activities in the country, administer, control, and manage the special economic zones, maintain a register developed under the Acts, liaison micro, small, and medium enterprise with investment opportunities, issue guidance for corporate social responsibility, determine and propose charges, range, fees for the services provided by the authority, set criteria and capital threshold for investment, project appraisal, advise the government on appropriate policies and strategies relating to investment, the design and implement the investment incentive schemes, and monitor its outcome and investments which are significant to the economy of the country and perform any other function related to functions of the autonomy. So all the administration of the investors are under the control and management of ZIPA. What then the authority can do and cannot do? It can issue, as I've said, it can issue, modify, cancel certificate of investment issues under this act, issue orders, directives, guidance, and circulars on investment and the other related matters, request information from any person where the authority has reason to believe that the person is capable to provide that information, document, or evidence that may assist the authority in performance of functions, investigate any claim against the investor or approved investment, provide land lease and grant title deed to investors with special economic zones, and enter into any premise of investment project with a notice or without notice for the purpose of exercising its function, and invest inside or outside Tanzania of the fund which is owned. One issue that troubles most investors is where to locate institutions, where they can establish the institutions. Most cases, they have issues relating to land, taxation, migration, etc. But this particular problem has been solved to the extent that ZIPA has been structured to function as a one-stop center for purposes of facilitating the performance of these functions. So all those particular functions, they have offices within the ZIPA, and they are working under the administration of ZIPA to do all those particular functions, which are related, which relate to the investment business in one way or another. The composition functions and other provisions relating to one-stop center are to be provided in regulations. Of course, by regulations, these particular matters are put in practice. Then you have investment procedure and incentives available. The Act has three categories of persons as investors. These include foreigners, diasporas, and Tanzanians. Any of these persons intending to invest or do business in Zanzibar can apply for a certificate of investment to ZIPA. The procedures for application, conditions, assurance of certificate of investment, fees, validity, renew, and amendment of the certificates of investment are to be provided under regulations. And the authority may suspend or cancel the certificate of investment where there is reasonable ground to believe that the certificate of investment is obtained by frauds, the investor fails to commence business of the investment project within 1 year from the date of obtaining all required documents, a project is abandoned, the investor applies for incentive conferred under the Act for the purposes other than those which the incentives were conferred, the investor fails without reasonable cause to commence investment project operations within the time stipulated in the certificate, or the investor fails to comply with any of obligations imposed under the Act. However, the investor is given is required to give notice at least 30 days to that particular person. This is almost the time right to be had, and that particular person, if gives satisfaction explanation, because any power before that be taken against that particular person has been given that to be heard and to explain why that particular measure should not be taken. And if he gives satisfactory answers, the ZIPA can suspend its decision and guide according to what it sees to be fit. Otherwise, the cancellation they made, and once the cancellation is made, the investor fails to provide the consequences of cancellation. We can say the investment ceases to be an approved investment, the land ceases relating to the investment is automatically revoked. The land lease relating to that particular investment is automatically revoked, and incentives given to the investor shall cease, and any taxes exempted under shall become payable effectively. And there came the question of incentive to investors. These are many. They include land lease in the special economic zone, and where the investor requires land outside the economic zone, ZIPA shall facilitate acquisition of that particular land lease through the ministry responsible for land. Here, before grant of land, of course, there shall be some compensation to the occupier of land, which is given to the investor, because it is a question of the ministry responsible for land, which will go and negotiate this particular land for investor, of course, together in comparison with the ZIPA. And then, if that particular land was used by an individual, the investor will have to compensate that particular individual, because before the lease is given to him by the government. Then you have the right and obligation authorities and the investor. Authority is given the right to adopt all necessary measures in overseeing investments in order to ensure that all investment activities are carried out in accordance with the intended objective of the Act. And there is a statement here I have quoted of the Minister responsible for land. He said that the aim or the object of the Act is to position Zanzibar to be among the best investment destination in East Africa and Sub-Saharan region by providing best services, physical and non-physical incentives, prescribed investment capital thresholds for the foreigners, the diasporas, and Tanzanians visiting, investing in Zanzibar, and ensure the availability of land for special economic zone. The Act also sets conditions and outlines obligations of the investor on the local contents and the corporate social responsibility for the social and economic development of Zanzibar. So this is the commitment by the minister. Then we have obligation of the investors. These include the duty to comply with the laws, of course, laws of Zanzibar and that of United Republic of Tanzania, to submit timely information as required in several reports. And there are some other matters to protect consumers, environment, gender equality, and so and so forth. There are those covered under the Act. And of course, some of the other that the investor has to open an account and in the local bank in Tanzania, especially for the purpose of running his institution. He will use the local bank for that particular purpose. And if he wants to use the foreign bank, he has to have written approval of the authority. That must be approved by the authority, and maybe there are some conditions and remaining, especially related to openness and something like that, transparency, and some other matters of ethics. In addition, the investor is to adhere the environment, social governance guidelines and issued by under the provision of this Act. Rights of the investors are many. Okay. After paying the taxes and other liabilities, the investor is allowed to transfer out the money in convertible foreign currency at the prevailing official rates. And this particular money includes dividends and some other monies, including the principal money and the interest of any foreign loan registered in Zanzibar and contracting here there. Also, expatriates employed by the investor are allowed also to remit in convertible foreign currency salaries and other monies they obtain in their functioning. Also, under Section 36, provide for the protection of the intellectual property rights which are related to the approved investment. This will be protected in accordance with the relevant laws. Of course, investor is protected against any takeover by the government of any investment interest or right related to this. And for this particular purpose, we have special provisions in our Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, that no such takeover can be taken without existence of public interest and prompt compensation to be made, that fair, what's called fair and timely compensation. Our Act says that there must be fair and timely compensation. Some of the academics have said that they are unsatisfied with this, as it avoids the standard form of compensation, which is prompt, adequate, and effective. They are saying fair, and what fairness, how fairness can be calculated, then can have a number of theories. Equally unsatisfactory is the promise that the government shall not take any arbitrary measures or decisions that adversely affect the investor's rights or the ability to cooperate in Zanzibar without legitimate and justifiable reason. Worrying also here is what is legitimate and what is justifiable, which are not defined under the Act, and there's no criteria in that particular measurement. Employment within the investment, of course, foreign investors can employ up to 10% of the expatriates who work in that particular function, but provided that there are no Tanzanians and Zanzibaris. So the priority are Zanzibaris who are Tanzanians also. If there's no Zanzibari, we can look of Tanzanian, and if there's no Tanzanian for that particular purpose, expatriates can be allowed to be there, but all that can be that particular threshold can be lowered, that particular payment can be lowered with agreement between the government and the investor. If the investor applies that he is a special case to make, the government will hear, and there are a number of cases in which the expatriates has been taken to apart outside the provision of this particular law. Designation of special economic zone, of course, there are special economic zone. It's the president who designates that particular areas, but once designated are under the authority of ZIPA. Special zones shall include the free port zone, free economic zone, land bank for investment, export processing zone, digital free zones, industrial zones, small island zones, free trade zones, logistic zones, and other conventional centers. The special economic zones are designed to provide favorable operating conditions and guarantee stable business sites to the investors in different ways. In relation to the special economic zone, ZIPA has to perform the following functions, namely promulgate policies and all necessary guidance for the effective investment activities, designate geographically defined areas which are suitable for investment development, prescribe types of services and business that may be located therein, grants, review, and revoke licenses to develop, operate, and maintain investment activities in special economic zones, and to monitor and regulate investment activities in special zones. Special measures attracted to, there are a number of measures, and if I mention all of them, I can give an example. For example, as for environment in the islands of Pemba, the appropriate investment shall be granted status of strategic investment if the investor has issued up to a particular threshold of money. So it depends what is the status and what can be given. But I know that under the regulation, many of these thresholds have been lowered so that to attract and to enable investors come and invest in the country. Incentives for investing outside the special zone, there are many as well. These include incentives during the implementation period, 75% exemption on duties and taxes on importation of construction goods or pre-operational goods and any other goods of capital nature. So there's 75% exemption on those taxes and duties. And then in some other areas, there are exemption. This is special on duties and taxes on local purchase of construction goods or optional goods. If you purchase raw materials either in Zanzibar or in mainland Tanzania, you have 100% exemption on the purchase of raw material. And there are a number of such kinds of incentives provided under the law are seen in my paper. Incentives for strategic investment, the fourth schedule of the Act, as read together, Section 26 addresses incentive for strategic investments. During the implementation period of the project, the investor is entitled to be granted the following incentives. Upon application, of course, those particular incentives some of them are upon application. 100% of duties and taxes on importation and local purchase of construction goods, as this is already provided, said there, and any other goods of capital nature. 100% exemption from income tax on interest for capital borrowed from foreign banks. Of course, if the interest is there covered in that particular, the 100% exemption is there. Maximum of 5 years grace period on payment of land lease, starting from the date of the land lease. 100% of foreign ownership is allowed. Engagement of foreign contractors is allowed, and so many of other incentive on investor special grant is the same. I think there are many. If you mention them, all of them.
Sorry, Dr. Yahya.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're reaching the end of our seminar. So
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but of course, everybody will read your paper with great interest, which is, of course, very, very detailed. You only gave a very broad presentation here, and we thank you so much because it shows that your experience is based on a very, very detailed system of tax incentives, exemptions, tax-free zones, free trade zones, etc. So that can also be of some use or some interest for the future autonomous region of the Sahara region. So I promised some general conclusions, and I apologize in advance because it's of course not very structured. It's sort of a few points that I noted throughout your statements, your presentations. Obviously, there is a sort of common thread, which is the specificity of each status due to history, due to the relationship with the central government, whether it's a form of decolonization, whether it's a result of a conflict or confrontation with the central government. Of course, we have some of these features in the case of the Sahara region, but at the same time, we have some specificities. It was noted by Johnny. Obviously, there is a geographical difference. Main difference is that Sahara, part of Morocco, is of course based on the continent, while all the other cases are islands or archipelagos, sometimes distant from the central government. Obviously, this has an impact on the type of autonomy that is being put into place. Of course, there are also similarities because islands, archipelagos rely a lot on resources from the sea, from the ocean, but Morocco is also a coastal country, so the Sahara region is also very dependent, is also profiting a lot from fisheries, aquaculture, and anything doing with the sea. But in addition, it has other natural resources and has a potential for industrialization. On the institutions, obviously, in each case, we see institution to run the autonomy, regional parliaments, independent from the national parliament. So this is a traditional symbol of autonomy. So the question sometimes is how far the central government can influence the regional legislation or regulation by the executive, or we have seen in the case of the current dependencies that in some cases they need to ask permission from the UK, although they are not part of the UK territory as such. So it's sort of, again, specificity. I think what needs to be recalled is that in the case of the Sahara region, when the agreement has been negotiated, when there is an agreement on this new status for an autonomous region, the constitution of Morocco will be changed. So it will be enshrined in the constitution and makes it really official, legitimate, and hard to change. And so, of course, we have also similarities in the sense that Morocco is a monarchy, and we have Denmark as a monarchy also, but with, of course, a different history. In the case of course, Zanzibar, it's a different system because Zanzibar had periods of independence in the 19th century and after 1964, and decided to unite, to make a union with Tanzania, and therefore it has sort of historical legitimacy in enjoying and implementing a system of autonomy. Now, I won't go into the details of the various types of incentives to attract foreign investment. I'm sure that this will be noted carefully by the Moroccan authorities, because it can maybe inspire some of their provisions for future status. I think, for instance, the example of Zanzibar to have a special agency dealing with foreign investment, it's a good thing. I'm not sure whether it is planned for Morocco or whether it already exists, but certainly it is a good system to help the investors, with a single window to go through all the procedures, the paperwork, knowing about the incentives, etc. So I will stop here, but I really want to thank you for bringing all these very important and diverse systems to our knowledge. This contributes to our common wisdom and our common knowledge that adds up to the results of the previous seminars on autonomy. And before thanking you and saying goodbye, I would like to give the last word to the Moroccan ambassador.
Bonjour, cher Marc. Bonjour, chers panélistes. Et bonjour à tous ceux qui nous suivent.
Sorry, Ambassador, there's no more translation in French.
There is no more translation.
Yeah, because of
Okay, so
yeah.
I will be very brief. Tout d'abord, first of all, I would like to thank you, dear Mark, for your presentation, your concluding remarks, and I would like also to thank all the panelists for their very insightful, very informative presentation and the information that they provide us. I would like to also express to them our highest appreciation for the comparative analysis between their country situation and the initiative of autonomy presented by Morocco to the UN Security Council to be the base for the resolution of this regional conflict. The rich contribution of all the panelists give us a wider picture. As you said, dear Mark, that every country, every situation is specific, is different than the others. It's not one that fits all, but every situation needs a single or specific perception, specific mechanism, and specific also approaches to solve all its problem, either for the executive power or for the cultural one or for the economic one, the repartition and exploitation of natural resources, or how we can drain our or encourage investment for the present situation. Why we have such seminars here? I think that's the 13 years that we are organizing such seminars. It's the token that Morocco would like to give to the whole world and to the United Nations about its willingness and about its the seriousness of his political will to solve the problem, this bilateral problem between Morocco and Algeria based on the large autonomy. The presentation of your respective model is the proof also that autonomy have been a successful mechanism to promote investment, to promote power sharing, to promote development, prosperity, coexistence, reconciliations, living together. So that's the proof that the autonomy is the one or the right solution to conflict or situation like what we have with our neighbor Algeria. Autonomy is that Morocco is presenting is more generous compared to others, because I'm following all the seminars that we have organized since 2008. And I realized that in many cases, especially in Europe, we are providing more power to the local organs and to the local population than Europeans or even Americans in Puerto Rico, for example. We are giving more guarantees, more safeguard to protect the autonomy from any shock, political shock, or decision by government to decide to withdraw it or to erase it. And there is in the history and in the world that there was many examples of autonomy that have been withdrawn after. But Morocco is still keeping the autonomy and attached to this autonomy to solve this problem. I would like also to raise your attention on why the Security Council is calling the autonomy serious and credible. It's because it presents the different tools, different elements and paradigms that help to solve political and regional problems, to reduce tension between neighbors, and also to reduce and to contribute to peace and security. And when we see that there is more than 110 countries that express their support to the autonomy as solution to this problem, a large majority among them, they recognize now the Sahara territory as Moroccan territory. They recognize that decolonization have been achieved by the return of the Sahara to its motherland. More than that, 18 European countries have recognized also the autonomy as a real base for them, good base for others, unique base for third category to solve this problem of the Sahara. And among these 18 countries, European countries, 15 are members of the European Union. So that's show you the large support that this autonomy is benefiting of. And also that confirm that the international community is supporting Morocco, contributing to find solution, and also looking to the effort of Morocco as the only way to solve this problem. So saying this, I would like to thank you, all of you. I would like to also to inform you, as Mark have said, that your contribution will be translated either in English or some French to others, and will be published. And you will get, we will send you a copy of the book that we normally produce to make your contribution public, and to make your contribution available not only to diplomats, but also to the libraries, to also to different ministry of foreign affairs, and to the academies. So your contribution and the experience of the implementation of the autonomy in your respective countries or region is for us a model. It's an example, and it's an incentive and inspiring to go forward for that. And because of that, I would like to thank you, because you are individually contributing to make the solution of the question of the Moroccan Sahara closer to its end, inshallah. Once again, thank you very much. And I hope that we will be able to organize next seminar or in 2 years in the Sahara, and we will invite all of you to witness in situ that what we have been telling you, what you are receiving as information, either by our respective embassies or by our colleague and friend Mark, are serious, are credible, and that's the reality. You will be invited, inshallah, and you will see by yourself, as we have been, as we have done several years ago. I think 6 or 7 years ago, we invited those who participate to the first seminars to Dakhla, and they could witness that Dakhla is a resource, is a region where economy is booming. It's a region and a city where population are, enjoying life even after midnight. The streets are full of population because of the weather of the Sahara. So we hope we will be able to bring you there to enjoy all together and to celebrate your work and our efforts, our common and collective effort. Once again, thank you very much. And the floor is back to you, dear Mark.
Yes, thank you so much, Ambassador. And in addition, something I forgot to mention, but of course, our speakers are kindly invited to join now the existing academic network on autonomy. All the previous speakers in the previous seminar since 2008 have actually joined this group. You can see their names and CVs on the dedicated website. So I will send you the invitation. Of course, we'll post your biography, your photo, and then you can interact with each other, with representatives from other regions. Actually, Dr. Mawardi is already a member, so I'm sure he will continue to be so. So thank you so much again, and hopefully we'll meet again, either online or in person. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to the interpreters.